Female hypergamy, the truth about women. Hello everyone. I am super excited to dive into this topic with you today. In this episode, I'll discuss with you the true nature of women from the perspective of seduction and social dynamics between men and women. Get ready because we're about to explore something mind-blowing. To do so, I'll be using a term that, for those of you who have been following me for a while, you'll have noticed I use often. I'm talking about hypergamy. Hypergamy is everywhere. It's a concept that, although it's gained a lot of attention recently, it still isn't used enough when explaining these kinds of dynamics and situations where there is interaction between men and women. I want you to think of hypergamy as oxygen, as air, something that, even though it may seem like an abstract concept, is always present. In every interaction between men and women, hypergamy is always involved. So let's jump in. The first step in explaining these dynamics is to really understand and internalize what hypergamy truly means. When we talk about hypergamy, we're referring to a female reproductive strategy. This strategy has two main parts. The first part involves the need to reproduce with the best possible genetic option. The second part is about finding the best assistance and provisioning available. Simple, right? For those of you who have read something about seduction or are familiar with social dynamics, you'll know that women are often described as seeking two main qualities in a man. The first is good genes, and the second is protection and provision. Well, this is hypergamy. However, even though its existence has been acknowledged in classic seduction theories, it's only in recent years that it has received the recognition it deserves. The reason for this is simple. We thought the best way to seduce a woman was by presenting yourself as a man capable of fulfilling these two requirements. However, this is not the case. I understand that for those of you who have read classic seduction theories from older books, a fundamental concept or the first chapter of these books always emphasized understanding that these two requirements exist. They conveyed the idea that to successfully seduce a woman or have a favorable relationship, you had to embody both qualities. However, if you take a closer look, only one part of hypergamy refers to reproduction. Only one. I'll repeat the definition. Hypergamy is the female reproductive strategy, and it consists of two parts: reproduction with the best genetic option possible and securing the best assistance and provisioning possible. As you can see, only one part refers to reproduction. Only one part relates to sexual relationships or something of that nature. The second part refers only to provision and assistance. It doesn't mention reproduction. And right here lies the key and the misunderstanding that has occurred over the years. Let me explain. Before delving deeper into this, we need to define two concepts, alpha and beta. These two concepts are abstract. They do not refer to real people. They are abstract concepts, and it's crucial to keep that in mind. They represent each part of the reproductive strategy. Alpha refers to the reproduction part, and beta refers to the provision, protection, and assistance part. It's important to define these terms now because many people assume that, at first glance, alpha is good and beta is bad. That's not the case. These are simply ways to personify this female reproductive strategy. Since we have two distinct parts for better understanding, all we do is create two distinct personalities, each representing one of these two different parts. It's crucial to understand that. It's essential to remember that they are abstract concepts. The key here is to realize that the female reproductive strategy is a contradiction. It's actually a cognitive dissonance. For those who aren't familiar with cognitive dissonance, it's when you hold two contradictory ideas in your mind at the same time. This is inconceivable for the male brain. Our brain can't handle two contradictory ideas simultaneously, but the female brain can. This is why her strategy can be considered cognitive dissonance. To explain cognitive dissonance, let's consider addiction. When you're addicted to something, you know on one hand that the addiction is bad and that you should quit, but on the other hand, you want it and can't stop. That's cognitive dissonance, holding two contradictory ideas. If we apply this concept to hypergamy, we see this contradiction in action. On one hand, she wants to find someone with optimal genes for reproduction, but at the same time, she seeks someone who can provide her with perfect assistance and provisioning. However, as we move from one extreme to the other, by definition, we're moving away from the initial extreme. In other words, if we imagine a timeline from alpha to beta, as we move closer to beta, we are moving away from alpha. This is very important, pay attention. If you visualize this reproductive strategy as a timeline, where one extreme represents reproduction with the best possible genes, alpha, and the other represents provision, beta, as you approach one extreme, you simultaneously move away from the other. What do I mean by this? I mean that by definition, a woman will want to reproduce with an alpha, but she also wants him to be capable of providing and assisting her, like a beta. However, as this alpha man starts fulfilling the woman's demand for beta traits, and I repeat, don't view beta as something negative, he's unknowingly moving away from the term alpha. As a result, the woman will no longer want to reproduce with him, by definition. Let me give you an example to clarify this. Imagine I meet a woman today and present myself as a man capable of fulfilling the first part of the reproductive strategy, i.e., as a 100% alpha man. By definition, this woman will want to reproduce with me because genetically, she's programmed to seek the best possible genetic option, which in this case is me. However, as we all know, at the same time, she will need or demand provision and assistance. So, what happens if I fully give in and meet that demand? That is, I've presented myself as an alpha, we've had sex, because by definition that's what she'll do with an alpha, and after that, I begin to move along the timeline from alpha to beta. I start showing more provision and assistance. I become more protective, more vulnerable, more beta, more of that person who can provide the assistance she seeks. What happens then? In this new scenario, I'm no longer as alpha as I was before, because she'll detect that my behavior is becoming more beta. Therefore, I'm no longer alpha, and as a result, she won't have the evolutionary need to reproduce with me. Yes, she'll have other needs, of course, but not the need to reproduce. This is the mistake many men make. They start off very alpha, gradually give in and end up becoming beta. The problem is that they end up asking, why doesn't she treat me the same anymore? The reason is simple. She doesn't treat you the same because you're not the same person. You were alpha, and she treated you accordingly. She wanted to reproduce with you. Now you're beta, and the treatment is different. The priority is no longer reproduction. It's to maintain your assistance and provision. So, how does all of this play out in practice? In practice, a woman is constantly asking herself, is the man I am interacting with alpha or beta? Always. Why is this so important to understand? Because she needs to answer that question for her reproductive strategy. She needs that answer to act accordingly. It's like she's asking herself, what treatment should I give this man? Alpha or beta? Because as we've seen, they are different. It's as if she's asking herself, what can I gain from this man? His genes or his assistance and protection? How does she answer that question? Because if a woman came to you right now and asked, what treatment should I give you? The one from someone I want to reproduce with, or the one from someone I want assistance and protection from? You would obviously say, no, no, I'm alpha, treat me like someone you want to reproduce with. This is exactly why, evolutionarily, women had to design mechanisms to answer that question without asking it directly. That's why she had to evolve these mechanisms. These are the tests. You may have heard instructors say that women are always testing you. Well, that's true, but it's not for fun. She's testing you because she needs to answer that question. And here's another crucial point that no one mentions. She's constantly asking herself that question. She doesn't ask it once and then stop. She asks it every second. It's like a voice in her head, always there. She's constantly thinking, is this man alpha or beta? What treatment should I give him? What face should I show him? What's more optimal for satisfying my reproductive strategy? And this translates into tests. What happens if you present yourself as very alpha from the start, very close to the reproduction extreme? The need for tests will be lower. She'll perceive you as alpha through your behaviors. We'll talk more about how to show that you're alpha later. But for now, let's stick to this image. She'll perceive you as very alpha. Therefore, at first, the need for tests will be low. And once she has a general idea of you, there won't be much need for testing, unless there's a major shift in your behavior. If you start showing beta behaviors, the question will arise again. Wait, this guy is showing a little beta behavior, but I thought he was alpha. I need to test him again. That's how tests work. This is what I want you to understand. Tests are just a way to answer that question. Once we understand all of this, we can return to what I said at the beginning about the classic seduction theories. They taught you that you had to be both. You had to have good genes and also provide and assist her. In other words, you had to be both alpha and beta. But as we've seen, that's technically impossible, because as you move along this line, with one extreme being alpha and the other being beta, you move away from one extreme as you approach the other. What happens when you follow this classic theory and present yourself as both? A curious thing happens. The woman starts giving you massive tests because she needs to answer that question. And you're making it difficult for her, because if she's asking herself, is this guy alpha or beta? And you claim to be both, it's like you're short-circuiting her mind. No, you can't be both. Which one are you more of, alpha or beta? If you keep insisting, no, I'm both, her only option is to keep testing you until she sees which extreme you lean toward. Because we all lean toward one extreme or the other. Once she's done enough tests and realized, okay, you claim to be both, but you actually lean more toward beta, she'll treat you like a beta. The key is this: if you present yourself as both alpha and beta, she'll keep testing you until she's sure where you lean. The optimal strategy is to present yourself as more alpha than beta, even if you have some beta traits.